One man took 1,500 warriors and built an army of 50,000. He never lost a single battle in his entire life. His military tactics were so advanced that armies around the world still study them today. He went from being a rejected outcast to becoming the most feared king in Africa. This is the true story of Shaka Zulu. In the early 1800s, somewhere in southern Africa, a revolution in warfare was about to begin. A young man who had been mocked, rejected, and exiled was about to change everything. His name was Shaka, and he would transform not just how wars were fought, but the entire political map of Africa. Before Shaka came along, warfare in the region was almost like a ritual. Two armies would face each other from a distance. Warriors would throw long spears at their enemies. When someone ran out of spears, they would retreat. Very few people actually died in these battles. It was more like a show of strength than actual combat. But Shaka saw this system as weak and pointless. He believed that if you were going to fight a war, you should fight to win completely. And he was about to prove that his way worked better than anything anyone had ever seen. If you want to discover how one brilliant mind changed military history forever, you're in exactly the right place. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you think about strategy and warfare. Drop a comment below, and let me know if you've heard of Shaka Zulu before. Now let's dive into this incredible story. Shaka was born around the year 1787 in what we now call South Africa, but his birth was surrounded by shame and scandal. His father, Senzangakona, was the chief of a small tribe called the Zulus. His mother, Nandi, came from a neighboring tribe. When Nandi became pregnant, it was considered improper and embarrassing. The tribal elders didn't want to believe she was actually pregnant, so they claimed it was just an intestinal condition caused by a beetle called Ishaka. But when a baby boy was born, they named him Shaka as a constant reminder of the scandal. His name was basically an insult. Growing up, Shaka and his mother were treated terribly. Other children bullied him constantly. His father wanted nothing to do with him. The whole community looked down on them. When Shaka was only 6 years old, he and his mother were banished from the tribe completely. They spent years moving from place to place, living in poverty, and facing humiliation wherever they went. Nandi struggled to provide for her son, and young Shaka witnessed her suffering every single day. This harsh childhood forged something inside him. The boy everyone said was worthless made a silent promise to himself that one day he would make them all pay attention. Everything changed when Shaka became a teenager. He was called to serve in the army of a powerful regional chief named Dingiswayo. This is where people first noticed that Shaka was different. He wasn't just strong and fast. He was exceptionally smart about combat and strategy. Dingiswayo became Shaka's mentor and saw potential that others had missed. Under this chief's protection, Shaka learned about leadership, politics, and military tactics. But more importantly, he started observing the weaknesses in how everyone was fighting wars. His brilliant mind was already working on revolutionary ideas. In 1816, when Shaka was about 29 years old, his father died. With Dingiswayo's backing, Shaka returned to the Zulu tribe to claim leadership. The same people who had rejected him and his mother now had to kneel before him. The outcast had become their chief, and he was about to turn their entire world upside down. When Shaka took control of the Zulu tribe, he inherited roughly 1,500 warriors and controlled a very small territory. Just 10 years later, he commanded over 50,000 disciplined soldiers and ruled an area roughly the size of modern France. This incredible transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened because Shaka completely reimagined how wars should be fought. His first revolutionary change was to throw out the traditional weapon. For generations, African warriors had used long spears designed for throwing. Armies would line up, throw spears at each other, and whoever ran out first would run away. It was inefficient and indecisive. Shaka created a completely new weapon called the Iklwa. This was a short stabbing spear, only about 3 feet long. The name came from the sound it made when being pulled out of an enemy's body. This weapon couldn't be thrown because it was the warrior's only weapon. This meant soldiers had to get close to the enemy and fight hand to hand. Warriors thought Shaka was insane at first. Close combat? No throwing spears? This went against everything they had ever learned. But Shaka didn't care about tradition. Anyone who questioned his methods or failed to perform faced severe punishment or death. Along with the new spear, Shaka designed large cowhide shields. These shields weren't just for defense. Warriors were trained to hook an enemy's shield with their own, yanking it to the left and exposing the enemy's ribs for a quick stab with the Iklwa. It was a deadly combination. But the weapons were just the beginning. Shaka put his warriors through training that was absolutely brutal. They had to run up to 50 miles in a single day, and they had to do it barefoot. Shaka actually banned sandals because he believed they made soldiers too slow and soft. Warriors would march across thorns, rocks, and burning hot sand until their feet became as hard as leather. Anyone who complained was killed as an example to others. The training was designed to create soldiers who were faster, tougher, and more disciplined than any army in the world. But Shaka's greatest innovation was his battle formation, and this is what made him virtually unbeatable. He called it the horns of the buffalo, and once you understand it, you'll realize just how brilliant this man really was. The formation had 4 distinct parts working together like a perfectly designed machine. The first part was called the chest. This was the main force of experienced veteran warriors positioned in the center. Their job was simple: engage the enemy head-on and hold them in place. They would march straight toward the enemy and start fighting. The second part was the horns. These were 2 groups of the youngest, fastest warriors positioned on the left and right sides. They would stay hidden or appear non-threatening at first. But once the chest engaged the enemy in the center, the horns would suddenly sprint at incredible speed around both sides of the enemy army. Think about what this means. The enemy is focused on fighting the chest in front of them. They don't notice the horns moving until it's too late. Suddenly, they're being attacked from 3 directions at once, and then the horns would curve inward, behind the enemy, completely surrounding them. There was no escape. The third part was the loins. This was the reserve force that sat behind the main army with their backs turned to the battle. Shaka made them sit facing away so they wouldn't get excited and break formation too early. They would only be called into action if needed. The fourth part was Shaka himself. He would position himself on a hill or high ground behind his army, where he could see the entire battlefield. From there, he would direct his forces using messengers and signals. This tactic of surrounding your enemy is called envelopment, and it's been recognized throughout military history as one of the most effective strategies. The famous Roman general Hannibal used it at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, but Shaka developed it independently, without any knowledge of European or ancient warfare. He figured it out through pure tactical genius. What made Shaka's version so devastating was the incredible speed and discipline of his warriors. Remember, these men were running 50 miles a day barefoot. They could move faster than anyone expected, and their training was so intense that they could execute complex movements in perfect coordination without any confusion. Shaka also revolutionized military organization. He created regiments based on age groups. Young men of similar ages would train together, fight together, and live together. This created incredible loyalty and unit cohesion. Warriors would rather die than let down their regiment brothers. Each regiment had its own name, its own distinctive shield colors, and its own special headdresses. This wasn't just for show. It helped warriors quickly identify friend from foe in the chaos of battle. It also created fierce pride and competition between different regiments. Young warriors were forbidden from marrying until they had proven themselves in battle and received Shaka's personal permission. This policy kept soldiers completely focused on warfare rather than family life. It also meant that young men would fight with desperate courage to earn the honor of marriage. What followed became known as the Mefikane, which means the crushing or the scattering in the Zulu language. This period completely reshaped southern Africa. As Shaka's armies expanded, they didn't just defeat enemies. They gave conquered peoples two choices: join the Zulu nation and adopt Zulu customs, or be completely destroyed. There was no middle ground. This approach was terrifying, and it was intentional. Many tribes chose to submit without even fighting because they had heard stories of what happened to those who resisted. Others tried to fight and were crushed, and some tribes fled their ancestral lands rather than face Shaka's armies. These refugee populations would then push into other territories, creating a domino effect of migration and conflict across the entire region. Historians estimate that between 1 and 2 million people died during this period, either in battles with the Zulus or in the conflicts that followed. Shaka's territory eventually covered about 11,000 square miles. His army of 50,000 warriors was organized with incredible precision. They could mobilize quickly, strike hard, and return before enemies even understood what had happened. But Shaka wasn't just a warrior. He was also a shrewd politician. When he conquered a tribe, he would often incorporate their warriors into his own army. Sometimes he would even give defeated leaders positions of authority within the Zulu kingdom. This helped prevent rebellions and built loyalty. He also reformed Zulu society in fundamental ways. Shaka promoted people based on merit rather than birth. A common soldier could rise to become an important commander if he proved himself in battle. This was revolutionary for that time and place, and it created fierce loyalty among his followers. However, Shaka's rule was also marked by paranoia and extreme cruelty. Anyone suspected of disloyalty faced immediate execution. He used fear as a tool of control, and his people lived in constant terror of his anger. When his mother Nandi died in 1827, Shaka's grief turned into something terrifying. He ordered a full year of mourning, during which no crops could be planted and no milk could be drunk. Thousands of people were executed simply for not showing enough grief. Pregnant women and their husbands were killed because Shaka believed no one should experience the joy of birth while he was experiencing the pain of death. This brutality turned many people against him, including members of his own family. The great military genius, who had never lost in battle, was about to be defeated by enemies from within. On September 22, 1828, Shaka Zulu's reign ended suddenly and violently. He was assassinated by his own half-brothers, Dingane and Malangana, along with a servant named Mabopa. The assassination happened while most of Shaka's army was away on a military campaign. His half-brothers had been planning this for some time, and they finally saw their opportunity. They ambushed Shaka and stabbed him to death with the very weapons he had designed. According to legend, as Shaka lay dying from his wounds, he spoke to his assassins. He told them that they would never truly rule because white people would eventually come and take everything. Whether he actually said these words is debated by historians, but it turned out to be a chilling prophecy. Shaka was only about 41 years old when he died. In just 12 years as the Zulu chief, he had transformed a small clan of 1,500 people into a powerful empire of over 250,000. He had revolutionized military tactics and changed the entire political landscape of southern Africa. After his death, Dingeni took control of the Zulu kingdom. He tried to rule with the same iron fist as Shaka, but he lacked his half-brother's military genius and political wisdom. The kingdom remained strong, but never achieved the same level of dominance. About 50 years after Shaka's death, his prophecy came true. The British Empire arrived in force. In 1879, the Zulus fought against the British in a series of battles. At a place called Isandlwana, a Zulu army using Shaka's tactics managed to defeat a modern British force armed with rifles and artillery. It was one of the worst defeats in British military history. But the Zulus couldn't resist the industrial might of the British Empire forever. Eventually, the kingdom fell, and Zulu independence came to an end. Today, more than 150 years after his death, Shaka Zulu is remembered as one of the greatest military minds in human history. Military academies around the world still study his tactics and strategies. His horns of the buffalo formation demonstrated principles that remain relevant in modern warfare. The importance of speed and mobility, the power of envelopment, the value of rigorous training and discipline, and the impact of innovative thinking on the battlefield. Shaka proved that innovation matters more than numbers or tradition. His tactics could overcome much larger forces because they were simply better designed. Modern military strategies still employ similar principles of flanking movements and encirclement. But Shaka's legacy is complicated. He was undeniably a brilliant military leader who united disparate groups and created a powerful kingdom. He was also a brutal dictator whose campaigns caused massive suffering and death across an entire region. Like many great historical figures, he cannot be simply labeled as good or evil. He was both. In modern South Africa, Shaka is celebrated as a symbol of African power and military genius. September 24th is observed as Shaka's Day, a public holiday. Statues of him stand across the country, and his story has been told in countless books, films, and documentaries. The Zulu people themselves remember him with tremendous pride. His military innovations, his rise from rejected outcast to powerful king, and his creation of the Zulu nation remain central to their cultural identity. For students of military history, Shaka stands alongside other legendary commanders like Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, and Genghis Khan. What makes Shaka particularly remarkable is that he developed his revolutionary tactics independently, without any formal military education or exposure to European warfare. He simply looked at the traditional way of fighting, recognized its weaknesses, and completely reimagined how battles should be conducted. That kind of revolutionary thinking is rare in any field, and in warfare, it changed the course of history. The boy who was named after an intestinal beetle became a legend whose name will never be forgotten. So, there you have it. The true story of Shaka Zulu, the African king who revolutionized warfare and built an empire through pure tactical genius and unbreakable will. From rejected outcast to empire builder. From 1,500 warriors to 50,000 elite soldiers. From a tiny clan to a kingdom that would later shock the mighty British Empire. Shaka's story proves that one person with vision, discipline, and revolutionary ideas can literally change the world. If this story amazed you, Do me a huge favor right now. Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible historical story like this one. Seriously, we've got so many more mind-blowing stories coming up. Drop a comment below and tell me what shocked you most about Shaka's tactics. Was it the Iklwa spear? The buffalo horns formation? The 50-mile barefoot runs? I read every single comment, and I want to hear your thoughts. And if you're hungry for more stories about brilliant military leaders who changed history, click on the video that's popping up on your screen right now. You're going to love it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.